Over his 30-plus year career in sports information, Kent Cherrington has been an impressive leader and achiever in his profession. Director of Athletic Communications at LaSalle University since 2018, Cherrington previously handled SID duties at Plymouth State and Anna Maria College. He's been active in CoSIDA, serving as the College Division Representative on the Board of Directors and the College Division Management Advisory Council, the Academic All-America Hall of Fame Committee, and the Convention Program Committee. Cherrington also served the ECAC CIDA Board of Directors and handled presidential duties from 2005 through 2007. He was honored by ECAC CIDA with the Irving T. Marsh Award. Kent was named among the first in the nation to use in-game computerized statistic programs, and he also developed one of the first comprehensive department websites in the country. Clearly, he's someone highly deserving of selection into the CoSIDA Hall of Fame.
Well, I've had quite a few memorable moments in my career as an SID and an athletics communicator. I think back of the three primary jobs that I've had, and the first job I had was at Miami of Ohio, and there was many moments there. The things that stand out to me were the time I spent publicizing Ron Harper. He was a basketball player who went on to the NBA with the Chicago Bulls and the Lakers. And, Ron was kind of an unknown player at Miami of Ohio who got lots of national media coverage. And so it was exciting for me as the assistant SID to help with the national media coverage that we were getting for this unknown player. And Ron had a really good story to tell. In addition to being a great basketball player and a great athlete and a great guy, he had a great story to tell because he overcame a stuttering problem and became a first-round NBA draft pick. And to get the national media that we got, it was really exciting for me to see CBS network on our campus and to see a feature in Sports Illustrated. And so that was really exciting. My primary role at Miami was I was the hockey SID, and I traveled with the hockey team for 8 years. And the hockey team struggled when I was there, and they were in last place almost every year. And I spent a lot of time on the road with the last place hockey team. A lot of great guys, a lot of good coaches, but it was difficult to spend that much time with a team that finished in last place. And my last year there, they actually jumped up to fifth place, and it was a big deal because Miami was they were in the same league at the time as Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Bowling Green, teams that had won national championships. And for this unknown school, Miami of Ohio, to become a part of the CCHA, to make it to the Final Four in the CCHA at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit was a big deal. And I was also the hockey broadcaster on the radio for Miami. And the year we beat Western Michigan in the playoffs and advanced to Joe Louis Arena was a huge deal. Looking back at it, Miami of Ohio has since been to the national championship game, and they've been to NCAA tournaments, but they were a really young program at the time. So just to make it to the Final Four of the conference tournament at the Joe Louis Arena was a huge deal, and I was a young SID, and it was a really exciting time and a really fond memory to me. And then at my time at Plymouth State, there was a couple of different things that came up that I will always remember. We had a softball pitcher who was a really, really good pitcher, and she set some national records at the Division III level. And she had an interesting story to tell as well. She was a meteorology major, and she just loved her major, and that's the reason she went to Plymouth State. And she got a lot of recognition because she was a great pitcher who set national records, but also a meteorology major. And there used to be a publication called the NCAA News, and people who have been around a while will remember that the NCAA News. And we got a feature story on Kim Jeffs was her name. We got a feature story on Kim Jeffs on the back page of the NCAA News. And that at the time, it was before the internet, and that was a huge deal to have that kind of national coverage for a Division III school from, central New Hampshire that very few people had heard about. So I remember thinking, wow, we really made the big time because we got Kim Jeffs on the back of the NCAA News. And then a couple years later, Plymouth State built an ice hockey rink, and ice hockey really sprouted on campus because we had a rink on campus. And one year we hosted our conference tournament championship, and we hosted Salem State, and the game went to double overtime, and it was really exciting. We had a great crowd in our new arena, and we won the game in double overtime, and the place went bonkers. And I'd hired a photographer for that game, and he took this epic photo of the celebration of our team on the ice. And it was a great memory for anybody who was there and anybody who had anything to do with Plymouth. And after the game, he gave me a handful of pictures to use. And I got an email from somebody at Turner Sports who was doing the NCAA website at the time. So I sent him that picture that night. And I sent him a couple other pictures. And, I had a lot of work to do after the game. And I got home, the game went late. I got home, it was like 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. And just for fun, I called up NCAA.com, and there it was. Wide as the screen is, as big as the screen is this epic picture about Miami of Ohio making its first ever appearance in the NCAA hockey tournament. And it just blew me away. And I was excited to see that picture on NCAA.com as I was that we won the game. And then I scrolled down, and the next photo was Duke beating North Carolina in the ACC basketball tournament. I was like, oh my God, we just scooped Duke and North Carolina in the NCAA basketball tournament. And so it was a great memory that I have at 1 o'clock in the morning, seeing that on NCAA.com. And the other final memory that I really have that I thought of over the last few days and weeks is the times I spent at CoSIDA and the conventions. Back in the day, in the 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s, the CoSIDA convention rotated around the country. And because of that, I got to go to a lot of different parts of the country that I never would have gone to, all over the country. And I got to meet a lot of people in this profession that I never would have met without that. So I was on some committees, and I got to be on the board. And just the whole membership of CoSIDA has been a great experience for me with all the people I've gotten to meet and all the places around the country that I've gotten to go. I think one of the things I'm most proud of is longevity in this career. Not a lot of people make it 30 or 35 years. I'm working on year 36 right now. And sometimes it's been a challenge. A lot of it's been fantastic. I've worked with a lot of great teams and a lot of great games and a lot of great SIDs. But there's also been times where it's been challenging. A lot of nights, a lot of weekends, missing family events, and but I've stuck around, and I've advanced through all the changes that have happened in this profession, and I'm very proud that CoSIDA honors the 25-year awards, and there's a reason they do that, because it's an accomplishment to make it through 25 years. This is profession, while it's fun and rewarding, it's not always easy to do. So I'm certainly very proud that I was able to last. I've been able to last this long, and hopefully I have a few more years left in me. Another thing that I'm really proud of is the impact that I've made on college students. I have a lot of student workers. I've always had a lot of student workers, 10, 20, 30 a year, over 35 years. And I know I've made impact on them and helped them get started in their lives. And it's so rewarding when someone will come back to me. They come back after they graduate, and they come back for homecoming, and they tell me what an impact I made on their lives. And I've had people tell me that the greatest thing they did when they were in college, they learned a lot in their classes, but they learned more from me working in the sports information office, working for me, than they did in most of their classes. And that's really rewarding. I've been invited to probably a dozen weddings of my former student workers. I'm still friends with a lot of my student workers, former student workers who are now 40 and 50 years old. And I've put quite a few people into the profession or helped them get a job in the profession. So I'd like to, or similar professions, even if it's not an SID. So I'm very proud of the impact that I've been able to make on young people as they start out into their careers. And I'm also very proud of the friendships that I've been able to make in this profession, mostly other SIDs, members of the media, who I've worked with in the trenches, at rain-soaked games outside, or in ice-cold ice arenas, or on Sundays when I'm emailing and texting back and forth, or back in the days when you were making phone calls on Sundays. Those friendships are lifelong friendships, and even when I am not involved in an SID anymore, those guys are going to be my friends, and those women. Some of them, we still call each other every now and then, because that's what we did back in the day when we didn't have email and texting and social media. You actually picked up the phone and called people. So I still have a handful of people who we do that. Every few months we pick up and just check in on how's it going. And so I'm really thrilled and honored and proud of the friendships that I've made in this profession. Sure. So early in my career and in the middle of my career, there's been a lot of changes in this career, and I was on the ground floor of some of them, and I'm kind of proud of the role I may have played. When I started back in the early 80s, people were keeping statistics with paper and pencil, and about the mid 80s, computers were not a thing, but then laptops became a thing. And there was a way where we could start keeping statistics on our computer. And I was kind of in the right place at the right time, because I was at Miami of Ohio, and Mike Ranieri, who was the founder of StatCrew, was a Miami graduate. And he came to us and he said he had this computer program that he could keep on his laptop that we could keep statistics. Of course, we thought he was crazy. But we gave him a chance, and he brought his Tandy computer in his dot matrix printer up to our office, and he showed us what he had. So we said, okay, let's give it a try. And we went down to the basketball games, and I was his caller, and he was the inputter. So technically, I'm the first caller in StatCrew history. And I worked with Mike at basketball games, and we'd do a game, and he'd come up to the office, and we'd talk about how it went, and we'd tell him the mistakes that he made or things that need to be improved. And so he'd go home, and he'd make these changes to the software. And he'd come back the next week, and we'd do it all over again. And, you'd update this or update that. And he'd go home and update it and bring it back. And through about the course of 6 weeks, we got to something where it was like, wow, this actually works. We can keep stats on a laptop right at the game. And so we would, we'd move along. And sure enough, by the end of the year, we were keeping stats, the official stats, on a laptop at the game. And in the late 80s, that was a big deal. And people would come to our games, media and other SIDs, and they were floored. And I give Mike Ranieri the credit, but I was definitely there side by side with him, helping to do that. And then, that became a thing. And I don't want to say I was an expert, but a lot of people came to me for advice on how to get involved in doing stats on a computer right at the site on press row. And it became a thing. And then a few years later, I was at Plymouth State, and we had football at Plymouth State, but we didn't have a stats program. So I called Mike Ranieri and said, I'm in New Hampshire and he's in Ohio. And I said, Mike, we have football and I need a stats program. And he said, well, we're in the process of developing it, but it's not on the market yet. So I said, that's okay. I don't care. Just send it to me. So he sends it to me, and I practiced with it, and we did a game. And, we did hand stats as a backup, but it was like, it worked. So I'd call him on Monday and say, this worked really well, but here's a couple things you need to update. So he'd update it. He'd overnight mail me a new floppy disk so I could upload the information on my computer, because this is all before email and stuff. And so we'd get an updated version, and we'd do another game. And we did that 3 or 4 weeks in a row, where he'd send me a new disk with an updated program, and we were keeping the statistics. Well, as it turns out, we went undefeated that year, and we hosted a first round of the NCAA football tournament in Division III. And I said, Mike, we're going to use your program to keep stats at an official NCAA tournament game. And he's like, you can't do that. That program's not on that program's not on the market yet, and I haven't got it approved by the NCAA or anything. And I said, well, Mike, that doesn't matter, because I have the computer and I'm going to the game, so I'm keeping the stats on the computer at the game. And sure enough, we did it, and we printed out all the reports at the end of the game. And that was also the early stages of a copy machine that would collate and staple. So I printed off, 16 pages of the reports and play-by-play and everything on the dot matrix printer, went in the copy room, collated and stapled 30 copies, and walked into the press conference after that was going on and started handing out these 16-page packages of stats and programs and everything. And people were looking at me like I had just reinvented the wheel. So it was really a proud moment that we were able to pull that off. And again, I credit Mike Ranieri for having, and Alex Grimm at Stat Crew for doing that. But it was something I'm proud of, because I was on the early stages of computerized statistics. And, it wasn't too much longer after that where pretty much every school in the country was using Stat Crew. And I was like, wow, I was like one of the first ones, if not the first one, to use Stat Crew. And now everybody uses it. So that was a really exciting thing. And then the other thing similar with the websites, when I was at Plymouth in the mid-90s, they came to me with this thing called the internet, which I had no idea what it was. And they said, we want to put your schedules on the internet. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what it is, but I'll send you the schedules. And they put them on there, and I kind of started to learn what the internet was. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. You want to put the rosters on there? Like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. And so it was the help of somebody on campus. It was, before Sidearm, before Presto, and some of those other website providers now. And so we put our rosters and our schedules and our coaches' bios, and I'm like, wow, this thing's pretty cool. And then I remember at the end of the year, they said, okay, we're going to take the schedule off and put next year's schedule on. I was like, well, can't you just leave last year's schedule on there? Because we have all the results on there. Why can't we just leave them on there? And they're like, wow, that's a good idea. So we built our website kind of from scratch with the help of the woman from IT that was helping me out. And that's the first we did. And, other schools were looking to us like, wow, you guys got a really cool website. We haven't done that. And a lot of schools kind of followed our lead. At least the small Division III schools in New England were following us. And then, of course, Sidearm and Presto and some of the other website companies came along and created a way. And then we eventually transitioned into that arena as well. But in the early 90s, when we first started that, it was kind of an unknown thing, and people were looking to us as, wow, you guys do a really good job with that. And so I felt like we were a good thing. And so I felt like that we were a leader in that. And then the last story I'll tell, which I've told a lot of people, it was the early 2000s, and everybody had a website by then. But, a lot of the websites were still run on a telephone line, and they didn't have the technology that they have now. So things were really slow, and, it took a long time for a picture to load onto the website. But you could do it, but it just took a long time. And I don't want to say I predicted the future, but I remember telling somebody, I said, one of these days we're going to web stream an entire field hockey game, and you're going to be able to watch the field hockey game live on the website. And, it was hard to even have a video on the website, never mind live video. And people thought I was crazy. And they said, no, I don't know about that. You won't be able to do that. I'm like, I don't know when. I don't know if it'd be in 5 years or 20 years, but we're going to watch a field hockey game live on the internet one of these days. And, of course, now, or the last 5 or 10 years, I think every school in the country web streams their field hockey game. So I don't know if I was a magician or anything, because a lot of people are a lot smarter about that than I do, and I still don't know how we do it. But I know we all web stream all of our games, and I remember thinking before that was possible, that someday that could be possible. Well, there's been a lot of people that I'd like to mention that have been a major impact in my career, all the way back to the beginning when I was a student at the University of New Hampshire. Bill Knight, Mike Bruckner, and Brooke Merrow were all in the SID office, and the late Bill Knight. And I'm still good friends with Mike Bruckner, keep in touch with him on a regular basis. So they were the first ones that got me interested in the profession and gave me a chance to think, wow, I can actually get paid to work in college athletics. That would be great. I did an internship at the University of Connecticut, and Joe Salties and Tim Tolkien were the SIDs at UConn, and they really took me under their wings and helped me get a feel for the profession. It was a full-time internship down there, and it really got me glued to thinking I could really become an SID someday. And then my first full-time job was at Miami of Ohio under CoSIDA Hall of Famer Dave Young. And again, I was from New England, and for me to move out to Ohio on my own to start my profession and Dave Young and the athletic director, Dick Schreider, kind of took me under their wings and helped me grow into the profession. And Dave kind of turned the hockey program over to me and all the other sports. Dave did mostly football, basketball, and baseball, and I did all the other sports. And he, gave me help when I needed it, but he also just let me take it and run, and I got a lot of experience in that. There's a ton of people at Plymouth State who are supportive of me, and now my current position at LaSalle. Quite a few people have welcomed me there after such a long career at Plymouth State. So it's been a lot of people. I forgot to mention Doug Norris at Plymouth State was the one who hired me. He was the director of news services, and he welcomed me and was a great leader for me as I was getting my feet on the ground at Plymouth State. There's been a lot of SIDs over the years, people from the Midwest when I was at Miami, people in CoSIDA. I'm not going to mention names because there's too many to mention and I don't want to leave people out, but SIDs and the Little East Conference that I worked with a great deal when I was at Plymouth State, and other Division III SIDs in New England. I got an opportunity to be in CoSIDA and ECAC SIDA, and I'm proud of the work that I did with those, and I worked with a lot of SIDs there that I wouldn't have worked with that didn't necessarily play Plymouth State or Miami. So those SIDs mean a lot to me, and we're friends and we keep in touch away from our teams. Like I said earlier, we call each other from time to time, check in on how we're doing. I'd also like to give a shout out to all the student workers that I've worked with over the years. They made me look really good a lot of times, working at games in the rain or in the snow or in cold ice arenas, and helped me get through some crazy times in my career and my profession. They've been so helpful to me, making me look good and become real good friends. And I have some interesting stories that I'll share with some of you some other time. And finally, I'd like to thank my wife, who's been through a lot with my profession. As we all know, all the SIED's wives, they put up a lot of nights and weekends and missing family events, and she's been great to support me and actually helps me with my job from time to time, and just been a great. So thank you, Wendy. I love you, and it's been a great help to have her along for the ride.
From LaSalle University, Kent Cherrington.